Right, welcome back, everybody. So that our program obviously being dedicated to listening to the Professor Salim Abdul Karim and the rest of basically the work that's being done. He's the chair of the South African Ministerial Advisory Committee on COVID-19, talking to us how South Africa has reacted, how we have done, and going forward the issues. Very much so a lot of what we have heard from the Professor, but just elaborating more and also talking to some of the issues that they may have underplayed and how things are changing. It's a trial and error a period that they're in right now. So it was interesting hearing from the Professor. I hope you enjoyed that as well. But right now, let's move on to our normal programming now and bring you some of the other interviews that we'd planned to bring you today. Communities have cried foul over alleged favoritism in the distribution of food parcels during the lockdown. They're accusing political parties of prioritizing their supporters and discriminating against others. Meanwhile, some political parties have also been branding essential items they're donating, such as masks and sanitizers, and raising concerns over ethics during this pandemic. To discuss this further, we're joined by political analyst Professor Prof Fikeni. Good to have you. So nice to be chatting to you again, Prof.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Greetings to your viewers.
Indeed, and I hope that you're handling well during this lockdown. But there's so much to talk about and so many things that are happening behind the scenes that we need to get to the bottom of. Now, some of the things, let's begin here. We've seen some visuals of chaos in areas such as Mitchell's Plain and people complaining of hunger and fighting over food parcels. How has this pandemic exposed the high levels of poverty in this country?
In fact, there is no other better demonstration than what inequality and apartheid geography creates than this one. It has always been debated, but now it is playing itself out that we are never prepared for a major disaster. If you have such high levels of inequality, it's difficult to implement some of the recommendations.
You know, it's such a telling time, it really is, and how we have been saying all along that during this time we've always spoken to the point that South Africa has to be one of the most, if not the most divided country when it comes to the haves and the have-nots. Well, we are seeing this very much so at play now. If there was ever a doubt, this is explaining exactly how bad the divisions are in the country, isn't it?
Certainly, it is a situation which is quite dire when you have wealth concentrated within 5 or 1% of the population, and you have a country that is reasonably resourced. It creates so much resentment when you have such levels of inequality, even before there was COVID-19. But now it can become a spark if in our reconstruction and post-COVID economic stimulus, we don't prioritize this matter. It's a burning platform.
Let's talk about the politicizing now of some essential items. I mean, you know, there's of course been talk of some branded items that have been given to communities, whether we're talking hand sanitizers or talking masks or talking whatever it may be, and they've got the different party emblems on them. I mean, at a time like this, is that necessary?
In fact, it is the most unfortunate indictment of political parties as well as some business people who are preying on this partisanship. It is the most graphic display of the most unpatriotic nature that our society finds itself. All other nations, when there is a crisis, there is a sense of common purpose. That's when even partisanship and sectoral interests are suspended. But in our case, it looks like nothing, including this crisis, will stop people from simply identifying themselves in partisan terms.
I mean, we've also, and we're seeing it on screen, there's even pictures circulating of people distributing food parcels wearing party regalia and also refusing to hand out food parcels to certain communities that are run by different political parties and not necessarily by the party that's distributing this food. Again, this is really taking advantage of a situation, isn't it?
not only taking advantage of the situation, it is showing the shallowness of our national consciousness and the very basic, partisanship, and taking advantage of a situation which is so bad. In fact, anyone who would have been astute would realize that by helping all other people, irrespective of their party affiliation, you would be persuading them that you have values, you have empathy and Ubuntu. But the moment you take advantage of this as if it's a political campaign, people will remember you for all wrong reasons.
Mm. Will they? That's an important question to ask because, perhaps people, because they are so desperate, will remember the moment that a certain political party came and gave them a food pack, and that'll be something that they remember, and they'll go out and vote. And that's what perhaps political parties are thinking right now. I mean, these are things that you usually see during electioneering and not in a time of crisis, but it seems that there's a very fine line between electioneering and crisis management.
In fact, it's a big, bold line because, remember, the reason that people do not participate in our politics, even during elections, and the numbers have been going down to some degree, it's precisely because of this partisanship to the extreme. And also, the people who are members, identified members of any political party, is only a small fraction of people who end up voting. The biggest majority of people are not even aligned to any party. And that is where any reasonable leadership would be focusing on all people. And during a crisis of this nature, the most patriotic duty would be to simply help people wherever they are, irrespective of their political affiliation or no affiliation.
Mm. I mean, can we honestly say that if we just look at South Africa, that we're unique to this? Because, if we have to turn our attention to what's happening in other countries, like let's just take the US, for example, and how Trump is basically having, the US president is having these daily briefings, and many are saying that this is just PR stunts for him more than anything else. So, globally, is this also a situation that we're finding everywhere, not necessarily just here?
I think before Trump, during crisis, people used to have a sense of patriotism, even in the U.S. And in many other countries, people are not using this for political reasons. But remember, Trump is in his own universe of logic, which has never been seen before, and we will say it was never seen since when he leaves. So Donald Trump is just Donald Trump. He has to put it in category.
All right, Somadoda, we're going to leave that there for now because we thank you very, very much for giving us the perspective on the politicking when it comes to the COVID-19 crisis, and many people calling some politicians out and political parties for electioneering during this time. Thanks so much for talking to us here on the program. That was Dr. Somadoda Fikeni, and always a pleasure speaking to him here on the program. All right, we're running into a little bit of time problems. It was